Okay, so looking at my channel along with multiple others that make similar content, one game recently has been taking over the recent couple weeks of uploads. And that game happens to be the famous, or dare I say infamous, Poppy Playtime. The game is just your basic horror game. In fact, you could even say it was a really good horror game at that. However, there's been multiple controversies floating around throughout the game's actual rollout. But generally, throughout this game's development, there's been one sort of inconsistency throughout my own channel. And that has been me going from talking about Poppy Playtime in a negative light, followed by me saying something super positive about the game, followed by more news I don't support, and so on. Anyway, because I've been doing this recently, along with the divide in the Poppy Playtime community, there's also been a divide in my own content, with some people supporting the game and others who entirely don't even want to play it at all. And in this video, I for one wanted to respond and give my own opinions on the controversy and why I actually do still support the developers and play their chapters. And two, most importantly, I actually wanted to take a bit of a dive into the controversy and everybody's take on it to actually find the real answer of whether or not this game should overall be supported. Just at the beginning, for the record, if you aren't aware of the controversy, which I'm sure you are at least to some extent, I've talked about it in a couple videos, and there's also some more specific deep dive videos on the controversy from people like Theft King, which I'll link in the description. But in a 2-sentence horror style of recapping, the Poppy Playtime team have been accused of attacking a young up-and-coming animator, releasing way too much merch to profit off their game, stealing from other games, and naturally after all of this, people weren't very happy with the team for some very good reasons, especially since that up-and-coming animator in question named Coaster is said to have endured real-life effects from this, including going to a psychiatric facility. And while that's already bad enough to turn a lot of the people away, the owners are also being accused of targeting their own customers to make money. The insane amount of merchandising and franchising going on has led to so many different money-making announcements that come out pretty much every single week, whether it's a movie, or a new shirt collection, or new plushies, or just something. These factors are pretty damn bad to consider, but after this, the community came up with some pretty good reasons for both why some people still want to support this game, and on the other hand, why people consider this enough to stop associating themselves with the game altogether. For those people that after this controversy don't like the game anymore, the reasoning is obviously pretty simple. They don't want to support a team of developers that have a history of taking advantage of other people in the community. And simply put, it's hard to look at this game positively when knowing the developers have had a shady rise to the top, and now that they finally are there, the only real people in control at this point are the people buying and supporting the game, hence why some of them are doing the exact opposite. So relating to that, Poppy Playtime at the end of the day costs money. So every single time anybody presses purchase on anything Poppy Playtime related along with the game itself, that's part of their money going towards these developers that they don't want to support. As a side note, I just wanted to address, by the way, that there's a lot of people on the side who are actually opting to use illegal practices like pirating the game to still be able to play it without supporting them. And I mean, do what you want with your time, but trying to illegally work around things just isn't really the right way to show lack of support in my opinion. But anyway, while there's a lot of people on that side, there's also probably an equal amount of people that still want to support the game, and there's actually a few pretty good reasons for this. One of the main reasons is of course because why punish everybody on the team when there's only a few bad apples? Because while yes, the main developers are all the same people associated with Animation Sins and Enchanted Mob, the two groups that were mostly responsible for the original drama with Coaster along with pretty much every controversy leading up to that point. But for every one controversial developer, there's tons of animators and programmers who helped work on this game who weren't involved at all. Hell, even the game's director Isaac had nothing to do with this controversy, and he's probably one of the most involved with this game above anybody. Another reason for some people still supporting this game is because of these apology statements that they released, those of which making some pretty effective attempts at taking accountability at least for some things. And also in those apology statements, they expressed multiple times that they just wanted to be able to put these things aside them and move on. Now, when comparing these two separate takes of people who want to support the game and people who don't, it's pretty clear to see why there's such a big debate on which opinion is right. I mean, depending on the perspective you take, you could definitely see both ways with every argument. For example, if you don't like the team anymore because of the NFTs and the Coaster drama they were involved in, well, they've already made multiple apology statements about the Coaster situation, and all the money they made from the NFTs ended up going to other charities to help make up for it. And on the other hand, if you're one of the people that still supports the devs for the sake of supporting the innocent animators who didn't actually do anything, well, realistically, despite the people involved with the controversy only being a minority of the developers, because they are the higher-ups in the company, they're still most likely getting a majority of the pot. In Theft King's responding video to the developer's apology, it was said that an anonymous source alleges that Poppy Playtime had made over $4 million in revenue, and most of that money is most likely going to those controversial figures. Anyway, we could go back and forth half debunking every single argument, but which one is right? Well, honestly, if you want my take, I don't think either of the two are really correct. We sort of right now are at a state of mutual destruction with this game. You could either ignore the previous actions by the developers and support support the entire team anyway, or you could instead opt in not purchasing the game at all, which would then indirectly hurt every other person who was working on the game who did nothing with the controversy at all. This dilemma, I think no matter how you see it, is something that is definitely worth mentioning because to me there isn't a definite answer at all. I mean, sure, the developers apologized for their actions, but they did so in a PR half-baked defensive way. But I also don't know if all that stuff is worth hurting the tens of people who are also working on this game, because even though the people getting the most money are going to be those top dogs who invented the game and its idea, regardless, like I said, the majority of the people on the Poppy Playtime team are probably doing this for a living. But anyway, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I've done multiple videos talking about the good things of this game and the bad things, and after time and time again looking throughout each side, in my opinion, all I can say is that I personally, considering my values, still want to actually support them, at least in terms of this game. Obviously, despite this, I do not support any of the controversies. I've talked with Ecker Coaster about these things multiple times, and I've watched every video I can find all about the controversy on either end, and regardless, what the developers have done in all reality is just absolutely fucked. But to me, I actually think this game is still worth supporting. And I have a few reasons why I feel that way. One of the smaller ones is just because I love making videos and playing the game. It's just something that I enjoy doing. But another reason I still support this game, and it could even be a good reason why I think you should as well, is just realistically, even if hundreds of thousands of people decided they wanted to stop supporting this game, I really don't think it would do much to those main developers that you're trying to target, even if the game was entirely shut down. But what it would do is financially devastate every innocent person working there. Let me put this in some simple terms. Mob Games, or Examination and Enchanted Mob, earn money from their respective YouTube channels, which they then put into making Poppy Playtime, which then pays all their workers and of course a decent bit to themselves. Let's say in the ideal world of the people who don't support this game anymore that their efforts worked and Poppy Playtime could no longer continue. That would mean that now all the higher up developers involved in the controversy would still be collecting all their revenue from their YouTube channels and merch and stuff like that. But as for those people who only worked on Poppy Playtime, well, they're just entirely removed from the equation and are left jobless. I just don't really see how effective this strategy of not supporting the developers would be. I'm sure it would financially hurt the people at Enchanted Mob and Examination, but it would consequently financially devastate every single person who was left behind while the top people keep earning money from their very successful YouTube channels. To me, I just see it as a numbers game realistically, and I just don't think that indirectly hurting an entire team of innocent, talented people to go against like 4 people's values is really worth it. Especially since in the end, it's not like they're relying on Poppy Playtime for all of their success, while the innocent people who have full-time jobs there probably are. And this idea expands outside of the people that just work on the game. Overall, something I feel like people are disregarding in the discussion of Poppy Playtime is the incredible positive effect its creation has had on tons of good people. It's allowed for the many talented people working on the game to have a job that's probably pretty fulfilling. It's given content creators so many opportunities to create stuff about the game, and I'm not even just talking about people like gameplay YouTubers who just play the game for a couple videos and move on. There's channels out there entirely dedicated to making Poppy Playtime content, and I'm sure there's more positives that came out of the game I'm not listing. Could this potentially be a bias because I myself am a content creator and put a lot of value behind finding games that bring enough passion to put hours and hours into making videos on them? Probably yes, especially since the audience watching this very video has been earned because of Poppy Playtime itself. But either way, to me, it feels like there's been so many positives that the developers have brought to the indie horror scene, and to want to take all of that away to show resentfulness to a couple people just doesn't seem to be the right move in my opinion. Is this the correct thing to be doing? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I can't really say for sure because at the end of the day, there just isn't a perfect scenario where everything goes good in my eyes. But I just don't feel like entirely dropping a game that has brought me and so many others so much enjoyment is what I want to do. But realistically, no matter what you choose, there's always going to be a negative effect of whatever you pick. Unless something new happens with this controversy, I don't really plan on talking about it anymore, just because it's brought so much divide to a community that I originally loved because it brought so many people together. But besides the controversy, I still plan on talking about this game along with many others.